Professor Dumbledore. Sorry to bother you, but my scar hurt this morning. Yours sincerely, Harry Potter.
I would absolutely write the letter that same exact way. Sorry to bother you. I'm in pain and possibly in trouble. Hope this isn't inconveniencing you in any way. Thanks so much.
I thought that was just a really hilarious quote because obviously we know that he doesn't actually send that letter. He writes Sirius instead. But It's just funny to think of him like sitting in his room in the middle of the night like, what am I going to say?
Right. Let's just write a quick little casual letter.
No big deal.
Right. Oh, man. Well, greetings, one and all, and welcome to the We Read Books podcast.
Heyo!
Woo-oo. This is where we read books, and then we talk about them for mostly our own entertainment, but hopefully for yours as well.
Yep.
So, here we are. We're going to do that today.
We're on task. Yeah. And starting fresh.
Yep. And that is Mad.
And that's Whit.
Ooh.
We're here. It's Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Lovely weather outside.
It is very nice. It was really nice yesterday. We went to the dog park, but I don't foresee us doing much today. Not only was last night daylight savings, which throws everyone off.
It sure does. I've been yawning all day.
Yeah. But also, Dakota had to watch this UFC fight last night, so he was up super late. I did not stay up for it. I was doing other things, and I was like, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going to bed.
To dreamland I go.
Yeah, the dogs are your purview, so good luck.
That's why April's conked out. She stayed up too late to watch the fight.
She did. Yeah, Dakota said that both of them were being insufferable after I went to bed.
Really?
Because he was trying to, he was watching it in his office, and which is just across the hall from our bedroom, so he was trying to keep them from scratching on our bedroom door and waking me up. Mm-hmm. So he had his door closed. And so him and both dogs are in the office, and he's trying to watch this fight that he paid for. And the dogs are, trying to get on his lap, and April can't find a place that she wants to lay down, and there aren't any blankets, and she keeps scratching on the door, and she wants out, and she wants in.
Oh my gosh. I thought you were just going to say they were play fighting the whole time because they were just getting real ramped up from seeing all the fighting on the screen.
No.
You know, like those 80s moms that were like, you can't watch Power Rangers, it's too violent. You can't watch wrestling, it makes you act wild.
Nope. I mean, it could have affected them, but it was not in that way.
As being enclosed and separated.
Yeah.
Our girls also do not like when we are in separate rooms, and if one of the doors is closed off so they can't get to the other person, they lose their minds.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I mean, honestly, I would have just left our bedroom door open because I don't mind if they're in and out.
Right.
Like jumping up on the bed or whatever. It doesn't really jostle me or wake me up.
Right. As long as they're not, getting in your face.
Yeah. But the problem being that I had the TV on and I was watching a movie to go to sleep, which coincidentally was Goblet of Fire.
Nice.
And he had the fight going, and so since the rooms are not that far apart, I didn't want the noise to clash.
Right.
So I closed the door, but
it could have lined up with some sweet,
it may have.
action scenes in the movie when they punch someone, you hear a dragon roar or whatever. You don't know. It could have been epic.
It might have been great. But
we'll never know.
We'll never know. So, but apparently the guy who Dakota bought the fight to watch won, so cool.
Oh, great.
I don't remember his name. It has sugar. Sugar's part of it.
Well.
So, if anyone is familiar with a fighter whose name contains the word sugar. He also had, purple and blue hair.
Okay. I remember seeing a image of it on, like the menu on your smart TV.
Mm-hmm.
Shows you all the apps and all the things that are going on that you can, watch or whatever. And that was like one of the little ads.
Oh.
Do you have curly hair? Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, then I saw the ad for it. But
okay, well, that's the guy.
I know what he looks like. He's
Apparently.
the winner. Congratulations.
Woo woo. Whoever you are. You got that bag last night. Actually, well, they both get paid, win or lose, but whatever.
I mean, you should when you're getting the snot punched out of you / kicked out of you, so.
Yeah, he just got the larger bag.
Right,
so.
Right. As you should.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. But anyway.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so today we're doing Goblet of Fire.
Indeed, we are.
We are here. We're at the precipice of the series.
Yes, the midpoint.
This is the literal mid.
Yep.
We've done 3 before this, and we have 3 after this.
This is the roller coaster drop. This is when it all really rolls into motion.
That's right. Shit starts. So, we're going to be doing this in 3 parts also.
Because she a thick boy.
Whoop, she long. So, and it seems like there's at least one thing in each chapter that feels necessary to talk about.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even a situation where we could like just do a light summary and
no, there's no like, oh, they la-di-da'd around, they hung out on the grounds, they played some Quidditch. No, it's like there's something crucial happening in every chapter. It's kind of crazy.
So it really is. And I've never really thought about that until I was re-listening to the audiobook specifically for this. And I was like, holy shit. I know this book is long, but I've never considered that every chapter contains something that should be called out.
Yeah.
In a recap.
Yeah.
So here we are.
I mean, there are obviously things you can skip if you really want to, like, cut it down. But if you want to really go over it, you need to discuss it.
Yeah. Because there are, like, Easter eggs.
Yes.
All over the place. And I know whenever we did Chamber of Secrets, we talked about how Chamber of Secrets is, like, the most noir. And it's kind of like almost like a investigative crime story.
Yeah.
This one also this one is definitely nowhere near as noir as that one, but it definitely has an element of like mystery and investigation that the others don't really have.
When you have all this like suspicion and intrigue, you don't really know who to trust. And like everyone kind of has like this seedy past that you're kind of learning. Not everyone, but multiple
there are a handful
characters.
of characters that are popping up, and are they red herrings? Is this someone we actually need to like keep our eyes on?
Right.
And all of these things. So it definitely is like a mystery thriller kind of. But I feel like since it's the 4th book in the series, when you're reading these, especially now that they're all released, and if you're doing like an actual reread from book 1 to 7, you don't like zero in on those types of things when you're just like in the story.
Yeah.
But as I was like rereading it for this, it really struck me that this is a true like mystery thriller.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is wild.
Well, I guess before we go any further, if at some point you want to look us up.
Oh, right. Shit.
We have an Instagram and a TikTok at We Read Books Pod. And an email that no one uses. We Read Books Pod 23@gmail.com.
Yeah.
We I can't talk today. Good start.
Yeah. I don't think literally anyone emails anything.
Right.
So.
I guess you probably left it off on purpose because no one uses it, so.
Yeah, they don't.
Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
We Read Books Pod.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go.
I think, honestly, the most, like, listener interaction that we've had on socials is on TikTok for the post we made for Final Girls. A lot of people commented on that TikTok, and I was like... And a lot of them agreed with us.
Yes.
So.
Thank you for your support.
I mean, listen. Go back and listen to that episode because it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a few ago.
I still think about it probably more often than you would imagine. And I'm just wishing there were more in certain parts. Like, that whole house museum tour thing, that could have been so interesting and, like, the set piece for, like, some crazy stuff going down or something. You know, it could have been amazing.
Yeah.
And it was just wah-wah.
It was so unnecessary. Like, at the end of it, I was like...
There was no point to have included it.
What was the point of even being here?
None at all.
Literally.
That stop literally did nothing for us.
Yeah. Outside of, like, figuring out the email nonsense.
Yeah.
Which didn't need to even happen there.
Nope.
That's something anyone could have figured out.
Right. And even still, even if that wasn't revealed to us, who the person was got revealed later anyway.
Yeah. It none of it was necessary, and that whole shit could have been taken out.
Yeah. I was going through my Goodreads this morning, actually, and I was like, I think I need to change some of these to a 1. Because I'm just, as time goes by, I'm more disappointed.
Yeah, and I think that, because what's weird, especially if you read on, like your Kindle app, as soon as you're done, it pops up and wants you to rate it so that it gives it, like, a Goodreads rating.
Yeah.
Because Goodreads is a Google or an Amazon company, so they're all, like, connected. So sometimes when you're just finished, that rating isn't really... You haven't had time to let that ruminate.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree.
So. Also,
I noticed that pretty much most books live in the 3.5 to 4.5 range, because you have such a vast mass of people reading these books. You're gonna have, such a wider range of scores. So literally everything is 3.5 to 4.5. And as we said last episode, some of those boggle your mind.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, what's the point of rating it or even going off the rating? Because it tells you nothing. They're all the same rating.
It really doesn't.
At the end of the day.
That's so true. And what's weird is, what I have found is, like, the star rating means nothing. And then if you go to the reviews and read the reviews, oftentimes those also mean nothing.
Right.
They don't ever reflect the star rating, because generally on certain books, the only people who are commenting are people who loved it or hated it.
Yep.
It's never people who are like, it was okay.
Yeah. The
only people who feel really compelled to comment a review are people who feel very strongly about it.
Well, and usually I've noticed too, like, I'll read contradicting reviews. One person will say, this part of the book was really strong for me. And then the next person will be like, well, I thought this same aspect, not replying to the other person's, just theirs happened to be about the same thing. I think this aspect is really weak. So you're like,
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just going to have to figure it out for myself.
Yeah. So it makes, like, going to a review site like Goodreads and reading reviews before you read a book really kind of pointless.
Yep.
Because how are you going to know which of those reviews is going to align with how you read books?
Right.
You don't know.
I just kind of, if I get through the first paragraph of the description on the back without getting bored, I'll give you a try.
Yeah.
But if you don't grab me, I might put you down as a footnote in my brain and maybe come back to you later, maybe forget all about you. I don't know. There's so many books in the world that's just, I'm going to waste my time.
Yeah. I know. It's so difficult. I don't even know how I pick books, honestly. Sometimes it's just luck of the draw.
Right.
Like, I'll read this one. I don't care.
Yeah. Someone recommends it or it just pops up and you read the description and go, oh, that sounds interesting,
Yeah. And then you read it and it's terrible and you're like, all right, fuck. Sick. That was a waste of my time. But
this is something I can rave and rant about with my friend.
Yeah. I see a lot of people also, like, a huge thing now is people saying, like, don't be afraid to just, if a book's not good, to just stop reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And, which I agree, if it's not good for you and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to spend any more time reading it, like, stop reading it.
Yeah.
But I personally just can't do that.
I'm a weird completionist, so it's hard for me.
Me too.
But there are a couple books. I mean, I could probably count it on one hand the number of books that I've started and not finished. And still in my brain, I'm like, I got to go back later, though, and finish that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just sometimes it's happened very rarely where I'm just like, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
But it has to be pretty bad or just ultra dull or something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like, I got to get to the end. I got to find out what happens to give this a true
try.
Go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think also there are a few that I have started in audiobook form and stopped. Not because I don't think the book is good, but because I know that is not the format I should read that book in.
Right. And you just want to go back to it in a different way.
Which, the Wheel of Time series, perfect example. Dune, Zone 1 that we were going to cover.
Mm-hmm.
I know that one is probably better read in a physical copy.
I was reading the physical copy, and it wasn't that it was bad. I was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling wanting to get back into the book because it kept kind of jumping back and forth a little bit between now and like then or slightly then, or so it's like it kind of moves time wise, like not too far, but at the same time it can be a little jarring. You're like, wait, where am I now? Mm-hmm. Okay. And the writing style's a little different. Mm-hmm. It's not just regular spoken, English. It's its own kind of rhythmic. I don't even know how to, but yeah, it's written in a slightly different way, or like certain phrases. It's like kind of painting a picture. I don't know, just it explains and describes things in a different way than like normal speech. Yeah. It's almost like the way that we speak to each other has changed a little bit or something like that. Yeah. Not in a newspeak way, but just
in a futuristic way.
Yeah.
Because language changes.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it totally makes sense. But yeah, I did have trouble, but that is one I will definitely go back to. Yeah. I just think I don't think I was in the right mindset. Yeah. Maybe we had just like recently finished, I can't remember if it was before or after we read Legendborn, but yeah, if we went shortly from Legendborn to that, something like that would have been hard for me to switch gears to. I'd have been like, yeah, but that was so good and the pace was so fast. Yeah, it is. So, that is hard. I get that. Yeah, I also didn't finish reading Iron Flame, which is the second in the Fourth Wing series. Mm-hmm. I will finish it because I started it. But yeah, you won't do it with a smile on your face, I imagine. Yeah. Anyway. So, Goblet of Fire. Goblet of Fire. Our author, J.K. Rowling. Ayo. Rowling? I say Rowling. I think she says Rowling. I say Rowling too, but I always second guess myself. I know. Yep. Published in July 2000. Published July 8th, 2000. 67 million, pinky to the side of your mouth, copies sold. Crazy. That's so many. For just this book. Yeah. I made sure to look whenever I Googled it. It said Goblet of Fire sold 67 copies. 67 million copies. I didn't even think to look up the other ones like in comparison, but I think this one was higher. Yeah, I think we looked up overall copies sold for Philosopher's Stone for like the series. Yes. I think you're right. So we had some stats for that, but yeah. But this is, I think at this point, when this one was released, we're in like, we're really building up to the real like Harry Potter hysteria. Oh yeah. Point. Oh yeah. Because in 2000,
In July of 2000, I was about to be in the 5th grade.
Mm.
I had just turned 10. Well, I was about to turn 10 days after this book was released.
Right. You just had the best birthday presents.
Listen, all of us July babies in the 2000s, we got birthday gifts, like, every year.
From JK herself.
From JK herself. Felt very personal. Fun fact, my sister-in-law, Brianna, she's pregnant, and her C-section is scheduled for July 31st.
Is this baby getting a Harry Potter name or what?
I think she would really love to give him a Harry Potter name, but I don't know if
there's
the
so many. We could find one.
See,
a subtle one.
And her husband, Dallas, which is Dakota's brother, he did throw out Ronald, and I was like, I mean,
yeah, I like Ronald. As we said last episode, Frederick.
I didn't want to offer up Frederick because
we were saving that for you.
We're saving it potentially for me.
Yes.
Maybe I'll name a dog Frederick or a kid. I don't know.
Right, but you've called dibs, and that is perfectly fair.
Fred is my favorite character in the entire series.
But Ronald is a good choice. Yeah.
And it's very possible that this kid could be a redhead because Dallas is a redhead. Like, full ginge.
There you go. So, they have no other choice.
Their hands are tied.
If you're listening, you've never met me, and I just helped in naming of your child, so you're welcome, and I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yeah. As soon as she told me, she was like, I just scheduled the C-section for July 31st. I was like, what? On Harry Potter's birthday? That's so sick.
Yep. That's a good choice. Truly. That kid's getting a letter.
For sure.
The owl may not have come for us, but it will come for that child.
He is the chosen one. I'm going to get him a shirt that says the chosen one.
Heck yeah.
For his day of birth.
Right. Perfect.
Amazing. So our new characters this book. First up, we have Mad-Eye Moody.
What a character.
What a character. He's an ex-Auror, a.k.a. Dark Wizard Hunter.
I was going to say, like, Dean in the Auror? He asks it so funny. Yeah. It is an odd word to say.
Auror? Yeah.
Auror. Yeah. And the audiobook, I think, he says it differently on the audiobook.
An Auror? I don't know.
Auror. I don't know. I can't remember where he puts the emphasis, but yes.
Auror?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think it's, yes. So funny.
Yeah. So, and he has a magical eye.
And a peg leg.
And a peg leg and no nose.
That part, like, I try and imagine it. It really... They make it seem like there's just, like, a chunk missing, but, like, there's still some nose there.
Yeah.
I'm, like, equally horrified and curious.
I know.
What that might look like.
Yeah.
Because you would think it would either be there or not.
Right.
So, to think of it as, like, just hanging out with a big old chunk missing, just, it's very, it's a very strong...
Descript.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
Indeed. Well, after Mad-Eye, we have the Diggories. We have Amos Diggory, and then we have his wife. I don't remember her name.
I don't think her name is ever given. We only meet her at the end.
Right.
And it's just Mrs. Diggory.
But they are Cedric's parents. Cedric, as a reminder, is the seeker for the Hufflepuff Quidditch team. This year he is
I think he's a 7th year, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Oh, Cedric. He's handsome Hufflepuff.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Victor Crumb.
He makes me laugh.
Yeah. Victor Crumb is the seeker for the Bulgarian Quidditch team. Like, he's a professional Quidditch player.
I was going to say, like, the national team.
The
not
national
the school team.
Right.
Like, the professional team.
Exactly.
Inventor of the Wronski feint.
Mm-hmm. is a Quidditch move.
Yep.
Is a fake out, basically.
Yeah. Which I feel like Harry already did that in like year 1 and 2, but we're pretending like it's new and that Victor invented it, and we're very impressed.
Yeah, which feels like it should be named after him, like in gymnastics, whenever gymnasts like master or perfect a move in competition, then they get it named after them. Like Simone Biles has like 47 moves named after her because she's anointed as the best gymnast ever on earth.
Wow.
She definitely has 4 or 5.
Wow.
2 vaults, the Biles 1 and the Biles 2.
Maybe they just thought Victor fake out just didn't sound as good.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Because the moves have, like, their official names.
Yeah.
Like, their technical terms.
Yeah.
But in, like, commentary, people refer to them as, like, the Biles 2.
Should have been, like, the Crumb Skull Crusher or something.
Yeah, yeah. Hey.
Because if you are his opponent and you don't pay attention, you're going to slam into that ground.
Yep.
Pretty poorly. Next, we have Fleur Delacour. She is from Beauxbatons, or Beauxbatons.
Beauxbatons.
However you want to say it.
She's French.
Yeah, French wizarding school. And we'll meet her later. We don't want to tell you too much now.
Yeah. Yeah, we meet her sometime. Next, we have Leto Bagman. In my brain, this is Ludo.
Yeah,
but I don't know if it's supposed to be Ludo or Leto.
I think it's supposed to be Ludo because the audiobook also says Ludo Bagman.
Yeah,
but if you've heard people say Leto, more power to him. Sure. But to me, he's Ludo.
And Bagman is the head of magical games and sports at the Ministry.
Your typical car salesman sort of
he's like
character.
Yeah.
And attitude.
Yeah, he's very jovial and got that kind of jock demeanor.
Yeah, trying to get people to like bet on the sports and, you know, all that jazz.
He used to be a professional Quidditch player himself. He was a beater.
Right, on a professional Quidditch team.
Yep.
I forget what happened. Did he get injured or he just retired eventually?
I think he just retired. Yeah.
And then just stayed in the sports world, which
it's kind of what a lot of athletes do. Yeah. Like, they retire from football and then they're commentators.
Exactly.
So.
Total good transition.
Yeah.
Then we have Barty Crouch, who, what does he do in the Ministry?
He's the head of the magical...
random nonsense?
It's not law enforcement. It's something about
is it like just different regulations? Because they talk about like cauldron size, right? Your thickness regulations and stuff like that. So it's like, do they set specifications for things?
Well, he also speaks a lot of languages, so I think it has something to do with like international cooperation or communication or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. I should have looked it up again before this, but again, because of him and his assistant, the work that they do, I don't know if he's giving his assistant like bogus work or, you know, never quite nailed down what Barty Crouch does, but
yeah,
he's an important man.
He's like the go-to guy for talking to other people from foreign nations because of his language skills.
And as I said, he works for the Ministry of Magic.
Correctamundo.
And he has himself a house elf named Winky.
Oh, Winky.
Little female house elf.
Mm-hmm. Very
easily upset.
Yes. Yes.
That girl's emotions are wound very tightly.
And she's also afraid of stuff.
Yeah.
Poor girl.
I know.
Next, we have Madame Maxime. She is the headmistress of the Beauxbatons Magical Academy.
Mm-hmm. What's her first name? Alam?
I don't remember.
I've heard it pronounced
a
several a different way.
Olympe is what Hagrid calls her.
Yes. In the movie, it's always like, it sounded like they were saying her name different every single time. Yeah. But yes, Olymp, that's right. Thank you. And then we have Igor Karkaroff.
I think it's Igor.
Yeah. Igor Karkaroff. That makes sense. He is the headmaster of the Durmstrang school. Sorry, my brain just went, ooh.
Yeah.
Durmstrang. Which they say is a school where they like to focus on the darker side of magic.
Yeah. Instead of just doing defense against the dark arts, they actually teach them dark arts, allegedly.
Yeah.
So, side-eye.
Right. They're chanting "Don't be suspicious" all day long.
Yeah.
At that school.
Don't be suspicious.
Don't be suspicious.
Makes me think of Jean-Ralphio, Mona Lisa.
I think we probably mentioned them or that moment once an episode, but it cannot be helped. It cannot be helped.
Those are perfect television characters.
Truly.
I mean, and they're in the show the perfect amount. Mm-hmm. Because they're not in there too much to where their shtick gets old.
Right.
But they're not in there too little to where you forget about them.
Right. As I say, they're memorable, but not overbearing.
Yep. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now that we've met all of our new characters, let's get into our first. This is the first third, so the first 12 or 13 chapters. Mm-hmm. Ish.
Yep.
Okay. So first, we start off at the Riddle House.
Riddle? Who is that?
Oh. Dear listener, take ourselves back to book 2.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Riddle. Voldemort. So this is the house of his father and his father's family.
Intrigue.
So what's interesting about how this book begins is that we don't even get Harry in this first chapter.
Nope.
So this is the first book in the series where our opening is completely separated from Harry and Harry's point of view, which is really interesting.
It is.
And I meant to look up how book 5 starts, but books 6 and 7 also, their first chapters are separate from Harry and Harry's point of view.
Yeah, see, this truly is kind of like a little...
So we're like switching it up.
Switch,
here. I'm going to pull up the chapter listing in my audiobook and just see what book 5 is. Because even though Order of the Phoenix is my favorite, here, let me turn the volume all the way down. So
those are just not things that you think to make note of.
It isn't.
Until you're comparing.
Yep. No, book 5, we do start with Harry. So that's interesting that she didn't do it for book 5, but she did it for 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's really effective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To start and see kind of, because it also kind of gives the reader a leg up on Harry, because we know some key information that he doesn't, even though what we see ends up being a dream that he witnesses.
Right. He doesn't retain it as if he is privy to all that information. It's sort of like hangs cloudy in the back of his head. And
at this point, he's not ever had clear, vivid dreams like this. And so he doesn't, it feels scary and real to him, but he also doesn't think, oh, this has to be real.
Right, because all his other dreams are fantastical and you can read meaning in them, but they're not like him peering in on actual goings on. So why would he think, oh, that really happened? He was probably just like, that was weird.
Yeah.
But we are privy to some information that he's not, because we get the whole, not the whole story, but part of the story of the Riddle family,
right?
That they're wealthy and that, his dad supposedly left his mom after he found out what she was and went back to live with his parents, who were very wealthy and rich, but like they seemed like kind of cold people.
Yeah, they were kind of like stuck
how it described
up.
them. Yeah.
And that their gardener, Frank Bryce, who like lived in a cottage on the property, found them. Well, he didn't find them. It was like a maid who found all 3 of the Riddles dead.
And I liked that it noted that they were pristine. There was no blood. There was no injuries. They were just dead. And
they, when the coroner looked at them, he said that they all seemed in perfect health, with the exception of them being dead.
Yeah.
Which is ironic and kind of morbidly funny.
Yes. I found all of that like very fascinating. Mm-hmm. All that kind of, I don't know, that backstory stuff and like the perspective of the wizarding world from like a muggle perspective is just like,
what is this?
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But Frank was accused of, but never convicted.
Right. He was like originally suspected and they even questioned him, but because there was no evidence, and it seemingly all 3 of them just died.
Right. No poison.
So
nothing. Just
there was, nothing to say that it was foul play.
Right.
And so Frank just lived on in the cottage, continued to care for the grounds,
and whomever purchased the property. So he stayed on in employment for the following families and everything like that.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting too, but I assume, no one had any reason to not keep him on, especially it's like he already knew everything, so yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
So then we get to the night in question, and Frank sees lights on in the big house, and he's like, what is happening here? He thinks kids have broken in.
Because no one's living there right now.
Right. Someone owns it, but he doesn't live there.
Right.
And so Frank goes to see what's up. And unfortunately for him, he stumbles upon Voldemort Wormtail.
Yep.
Having a chit-chat about killing Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank's like, what the fuck is this?
I do love that, like, they're discussing things and, like, using wizard words, and Frank is like, what does that mean?
Yeah, he's, like, the most confused.
Yes. And I love how at first it's like, oh, there's something wrong with my hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, there's nothing wrong with my hearing. That's exactly what they said. I just don't know what that means.
Yeah, because I think they talk about, like, the upcoming Quidditch World Cup and Bertha Jorkins and
just the word wizard.
Wizard,
like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. And then Nagini comes along and Frank's like, excuse me.
Pardon me, giant snake.
On earth is happening here? And Nagini obviously tells Voldemort, yo, there's some old dude in the hall.
She's a little snitch.
Yeah,
is what
she is.
Not the cute flying one at the Quidditch game, but...
Right. A for real skis snitch.
Yeah.
She tattles, and then I think she just was like, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so Voldemort is like, all right, well, we gotta kill Frank.
Mm-hmm.
And they feed them to Nagini.
Poor Frank. We hardly knew ye.
I know.
God. He seemed like a delightful, nice old man.
He's just trying to live his life.
Just doing that gardening thing.
That's right. Damn. But what's funny and interesting is that Frank's death is the first death we witness on page in a Harry Potter book as well.
Oh, you're right. Because even though we know that his parents died, we aren't, like, there for the moment, as it were.
Yeah. And we also know that Quirrell dies, but it's not...
I was going to say, did we witness his death? Because he kind of, like, covered in boils, and then he's just not moving.
Right. And he's not, like, intentionally killed. Like, we know that
True, he does die, but yes, you're right. He wasn't intentionally killed.
It's almost roundabout as well. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm trying to remember back, but I think the reason that Quirrell ends up dying is less because of Harry touching him and more because Voldemort leaves his body.
Oh, see, I thought it was just all the boils that had, just covered his body because of the whole, Harry Potter, the spell in his skin, right. And, he can't touch him and right. all that jazz. So I figured the boils are what killed him, which drove out Voldemort because his host body was no longer viable.
Yeah.
But maybe it was kind of a mix of the two. It could
have been a mix of the two. And see,
it's like that extra life-giving force, was like, I'm out skis.
Yeah. So and it's not ever explicitly stated and it's not explained. We just know that he died.
Yeah.
And we move on. But
they weren't trying to scar us at 12, but at 14 they figure we're old enough now.
And Frank is also an innocent bystander.
Right.
And we're like,
yeah, the intentional murder of an innocent person.
Mm-hmm. In the chapter 1.
Woof.
We're starting off horde here.
Yeah. And then we switch to Harry, and he wakes up, and he believes he dreamt the whole thing.
Yep.
And his scar is hurting.
Yep, it's stinging bad.
Yeah. So I think he does know that means something. I just don't think that he knows what yet, or that he truly did see something that really happened until he sees, some puzzle pieces later.
Yeah, I agree.
But he's still at Privet Drive.
Yeah.
For the summer with the Dursleys. And, we see him. He is able to write letters to Sirius, because, the summer before last, Hedwig wasn't allowed to, leave the house and all that stuff. Maybe even last year. I don't know.
I think in his 3rd year, she could leave. It was just that he had to send her away before Aunt Marge got there.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that he has the threat of a murdering godfather, they're a little more loosey-goosey with being as restrictive of Harry.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice.
It's funny because at the end of Prisoner of Azkaban, he's like, oh yeah, my godfather who broke out of prison last year. He likes to check up on me and make sure I'm doing okay.
Right. Yeah, you know that murderer that was on the Muggle TV? Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
You don't want me to tell him that you're abusing me, do you?
So fun.
Blink, blink, blink.
Pretty clever on Harry's part.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. But yeah, so he writes a letter to Sirius to let him know about the dream and his scar.
Yeah.
Because
gotta tell someone.
Right. And he probably figures he'll know what to do, or he'll know what's going on, or...
Yeah. And I like this first time we see, Harry reaching out to Sirius for guidance as, a parental figure.
Yeah.
And...
because he's never had that.
He's never had anyone to, go to with a problem before, so it's really nice to see that he has someone that is not affiliated with Hogwarts or Ron or Hermione. It's his. Right.
Because he has, Hagrid, obviously, he's associated with the school. He has strong loyalties to Dumbledore, which isn't bad. But Hagrid also is, I think he loves Harry like a brother, maybe even a son, but I also know that I'm sure he sees Hagrid as not someone who, has all the answers.
Right.
Hagrid is a warm, loving, generous, fantastic man, but I don't think that he sees him as someone to turn to for answers.
Right. I agree.
But I don't want to discount him because, a lot of people, what about Hagrid? Hagrid's wonderful, but just not someone I think Harry can look to as a source of, I don't know,
magical knowledge.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I agree. So, interesting. Next we get the invitation.
I don't think I gave the chapter name of the last one. That one was The Scar.
So, in chapter 3, this when we learn about Dudley's diet. Now, when this came out, I was 10 years old. So, as a 10-year-old reading about Dudley being described as, like, roughly the size of a baby whale. 10-year-old me thought that was hilarious.
Yes.
Adult me feels bad.
I was like, I can see where, because especially back in those days, like, that kind of humor was normal.
It was normal humor, and also that is how kids talk to each other.
Right.
And even today, like, kids are ruthlessly mean.
Mm-hmm. And Dudley is a ruthless bully. So
he's such a bully.
You don't even want to feel bad for him. You want to be like, yeah, you are fat and mean, you pile of poop, you know?
Right, right. Exactly.
But yes, it does make me kind of sad. And obviously we have a way different relationship with the human body these days. And
right.
Our aim is not to shame anyone, but the Dursleys suck, so I feel bad, but I also...
Right.
You see the motivation is to, have them have a flaw that Harry can maybe tear down in his head a little bit, maybe, or something.
Yeah, that they have a struggle that Harry doesn't, and that doesn't bother him. Especially because with Dudley's diet, and this is like the wildest diet ever, their breakfast is a quarter of a grapefruit.
Not a healthy diet. This is extreme.
This is wild.
I do think, though, that his weight issue is not a, like, body shaming thing, and it's more of a outward view of his greedy nature, just in general.
Yes. Yeah, I do think that it's meant to symbolize that he's a gluttonous person.
Right. And not just with food, but with anything.
Yeah.
With the birthday presents and all that stuff. So if it upsets and offends, maybe try kind of thinking of it in that way rather than a body shaming way. Yeah. But that's kind of how I've tried to rephrase it in my brain, because it's like, otherwise it is kind of like sad that Dudley and Vernon, struggle with their weight, but especially Dudley. And partially that is to the doing and the indulgence of his parents. Yeah, it's definitely not his fault for sure. Not 100% anyway. Right, yeah. He's being enabled by his parents. Right. But yeah. It is still, I agree, sad. I think, he's a symbolic character. He's symbolizing greed and gluttony for sure. Mm-hmm. But I do see how people reading it would find it unsavory. I mean, agreed. I agree. It does make me feel bad for sure. Yeah. I would much rather Dudley just be mean and get his comeuppance in a similar fashion. Like, exactly. Which does happen. I mean, eventually, Right. But I agree, like, perhaps if it was written now, we wouldn't focus so much on that. Oh, yeah. We probably wouldn't even have this as part of the story. Yeah. If it was written now. Yeah. But that could be said of lots so many things. I mean, Steve Carell is on record saying if they tried to make The Office now, it simply would not get made. Agreed. Yeah. No, totally. And like I said, I'm not trying to excuse the way that they're, using their weight, but like I said, in my mind, you could think of it as just symbolically, it's an outward expression of the type of person he is on the inside. Right. But, that's how it's supposed to be. But either way. But yes, I agree that it doesn't quite sit. Yeah. Comfortably. But 10-year-old me thought it was hilarious in the year 2000. Right. But even then I was like, that's not a diet. That's starvation. Yeah. I was like, not even a grapefruit. No. Like a quarter of a grape. A whole grapefruit has like 80 calories. Yeah. A quarter? You pardon me, I'm hungry thinking about it. A quarter? No. That's wild. That's wild. Gosh. And but Harry has birthday cakes hidden in his room, so he's like eating his grapefruit quarter like,
I am so full.
I'm so satisfied. These jerk fools, though, have starved him over the years. So I can also see where he's like, I don't feel bad that you're now starving yourselves because this is the diet that you fed me with, basically, was crumbs and scraps. So now you see the torture I felt.
Exactly. That's true. Harry he feels no ounce of sympathy for them at all.
I don't think so.
Which, I mean, is fair. They've abused him his whole life, so he definitely isn't going to care.
And I bet you this might be a normal diet for Petunia. Isn't she,
she's very thin,
tiny?
Yeah.
So maybe she's just like, oh, well, everyone can just eat like me. No, little bird, you need to eat some more, too.
Yeah.
A quarter of a grapefruit is not enough to sustain anyone.
That is not breakfast. That's not even a meal.
It's not even a snack.
That's not even a snack. That's nothing.
Half of a grapefruit, maybe.
Half of a grapefruit is just, it's not adding calorically. You're getting your folic acid for the day.
Right.
But it's not adding to any satiating nature of a meal. No. I'm so sorry.
You got a thimble worth of juice out of that.
Yeah. You can have your half of grapefruit, your whole grapefruit on the side of a full breakfast.
Right. Sheesh.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. But yes, luckily Harry does have himself some sweets and treats that he can eat. Not necessarily healthily, but eat more than
he's at least
a quarter of a grapefruit.
Getting some calories in.
Right.
So they're having their grapefruit quarters when the mail comes. And the postman, I mean, generally they just stick it in the slot.
Right.
But the postman's like, I gotta knock on this door. Because one of the letters is from the Weasleys, and it is covered with stamps. The whole front of the letter is just covered in stamps. Because they weren't sure they added enough.
Right. And I don't imagine it with, the same stamp, like a book of stamps, just, but in my brain, it's bunches of different looking stamps.
Yeah, it's like sticker bombs.
Yes, it's aesthetically pleasing in my brain, just random stamps just covered. But each one is different.
Yeah. So the postman is finds it hilarious. And Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia are appalled.
Mortified, because anything unusual is a no-no in their book.
They cannot. But the letter is inviting Harry to the Quidditch World Cup.
Yep.
And Uncle Vernon, he pissed about the mail.
I think he would have been less mad but because the guy had to say something.
Yes.
It totally triggered his...
Totally triggered.
Mean, anti-magic nonsense.
Yeah. And Harry is like, all right, well, I can't go. I'm going to go finish my letter to my godfather then. And Uncle Vernon's like, whoa. Let's not be hasty.
Right. We do get to get rid of you sooner, so yeah, fine.
And be sure to write to your godfather and tell him you're going.
Right. Yeah. Make sure that you let him know. We're letting you go.
Let you go.
Yeah. No one's keeping you from anything.
That's right.
And then, so now we're on to the next chapter, back to the burrow. I just want to say for the millionth time, I want to live in this house.
Oh, hands down.
The burrow is the place I would want. If I had to pick one thing out of Harry Potter, the whole of Harry Potter, the burrow is the place I'd want to go and live.
Yeah. I think coming in a close second for me might be the Lovegoods house.
Yeah.
Which we don't see until book 7, but that shit sounds awesome.
Yes, it does. It does. I know you think, what about Hogwarts? It's a castle, I'd go there too, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I want to visit.
Right, but just the coziness of
I feel
the burrow.
Living in a castle that large, I mean, you don't want to do that.
No.
You don't want to do that.
Plus, they got, ghouls in the attic and gnomes in the garden.
Poltergeist.
There's always stuff to do.
Ghosts. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, for real.
But so the Weasleys are planning to pick Harry up at 5 the following day. So Harry's, getting his stuff ready. And the day comes and they're a little late. And he figured they'd be pretty punctual. I mean, I know they're always running a little behind, but they're usually, just barely on time.
Yeah.
But it's about 5:15, and then all of a sudden, they hear banging sounds from behind their fireplace, because although they have a fireplace at their house, it's blocked off, and they just have, like, this little electrical fireplace in front of it instead. Mm-hmm. And come to find, the Weasleys are all just...
They're in there.
Piling one by one behind the fireplace, just showing up.
I love this scene because Ron shows up and he's like, "What's going on? Is something wrong?" And Fred's like, "No, this is exactly where we wanted to end up, Ron."
Yes. But it's like funny, one person shows up and they're like, "Oh, God, go back and tell them not to come. It's closed. It's too tight in here." And then 2 more people show up. You're just like, "Oh, grand." So eventually, they burst out of the fireplace, making some property damage, which I believe they fix before they go.
Yeah, I think they fix,
no big deal. But yeah, we get a gaggle of Weasleys just burst out of the fireplace.
It's so on brand for them.
It really is. It truly is.
It just makes the most sense.
Yeah. So obviously, typically, it's not as if every fireplace is hooked up to the Flu Network.
Yeah.
This is just a special little, like, minimal, like, window time thing that Arthur has done. He's connected their fireplace to the Flu Network just so they could pick Harry up and then take him with. I think it's hilarious that the whole family had to come.
I know.
To come get him. It wasn't just, like, Arthur and Molly. No. We all are coming to see the Dursleys and pick Harry up.
Yep.
I think they were ready for a fight.
I think so. I think they
wanted reinforcements.
They have heard Harry talk about the Dursleys for so long, and I think that they kind of felt like it needed to be more than just, like, Arthur coming to get him.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. But, yeah, so Fred and George and Arthur and Ron. Is Molly not there? Oh, that's right. I don't know why I thought Molly was there.
Yeah, Molly and Ginny and Percy are just, like, back at they're just at home.
Yes. So if I said Molly was there before, I misspoke. I think I was mostly just saying that Arthur and Molly could have just come pick him up. But,
yeah.
But yes, all the boys. So Fred, George, Arthur, and Ron are there. And there's a little bit of, like, cranky feelings, but
yeah.
We just grab Harry's stuff and
skedat. Yeah. Arthur doesn't take kindly to Uncle Vernon, like, kind of snubbing Harry.
No, because Harry's like, "See you later," or "See you next summer," or whatever, and they say nothing, and Arthur's just like,
"Excuse me?
Did you hear him? He said goodbye to you. Don't you want to say goodbye to him? Don't you want to
Yeah, you're not going to see him for a year.
Yeah, you want to do something to acknowledge that you won't see your nephew for... No? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you.
Yeah. Which is, like, one of the first times we actually see Arthur kind of get hard with someone.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he does get in a fight with Lucius Malfoy and Chamber of Secrets, but outside of that, we don't see him, like, actually be very stern, and he is here with him.
And these people are strangers.
Yeah, these are strangers.
But, yeah, so, I mean, it's nice to see someone stand up to the Dursleys. Mm-hmm. Why is this the first time this is happening? I don't know. We should be banging down their door. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a reason, I guess, but still.
Yeah.
But kudos to Arthur. Thank you for being a little tough bud. Mm-hmm. And on their way out, the twins accidentally drop some candy on the ground. And they gather most of it, but Dudley does get one of them. And weirdly, his tongue swells so huge.
It, like, elongates and...
Yeah. Again, this is another thing, like, as a child, you're probably like, "Oh, ha, 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 what a knee slapper." Because that's what 10-year-olds and what a knee slapper.
He's got a giant tongue.
Myself, I was like, dear God, he's going to choke to death. This is not a joke.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, this isn't a joke. This is murder waiting to happen. So I think that maybe the tongue toffees...
Go back to the drawing board on that one.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't say he was... I mean, I think the word choking was used. Like, I think he was choking on his tongue a little bit.
I think so.
again, I was concerned.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be, but I was.
Yeah.
But I have my own, fears of, I don't know, just, ugh.
Yeah. I think when I was reading this, I was like, well, I know he's not going to die. I know they're going to fix him, so it's not that deep.
Yeah.
So I think that's just kind of how I approached it.
I think just in this reread was the first time I like imagined myself in his shoes, and I was just like, oh god, I would have had a panic attack.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
But yeah, they fix him. They fix the living room, and they all go on their merry way.
Yeah. Oh,
we get
Lordy.
some adult acceptance of like, okay, yeah, this situation. Oh, they're more emotionally abusive than I thought, or neglectful than I thought. I think that, because maybe they think from a child's point of view, oh, they're mean, but it's like, oh, no, they really are.
They really are terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
It's like one thing hearing it and believing it, and then seeing it and believing it.
Exactly.
It just solidifies. So.
Exactly. Right. So now we're on to the next chapter. We end the chapter with Dudley and his huge tongue.
Yeah.
And so next is Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. And to start off, we arrive at the burrow. Everyone's having a good old chuckle. And we finally meet the two eldest Weasley siblings. Yeah. Which, since we talked about them before, just when we talked about the Weasleys in general, I didn't put them in our new characters. But technically, this is the first time we meet Bill and Charlie.
Yes, because I think we received letters from Charlie in the first book, but I don't think we
didn't actually meet him because his friends come to get Norbert.
Right. I was going to say he himself didn't come. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I believe you're right. This is the first time we're seeing him physically.
Right. So, Harry's he's not surprised by how Charlie looks because Charlie's the dragon tamer. Mm-hmm. He's kind of big and built like the twins.
Yeah.
And so he kind of looks how Harry expects, but when he sees Bill, he's really shocked because Bill's got long hair. He wears like an earring with a dragon tooth on it or something.
Yeah, it's got like a fang of some kind.
A fang, and he says the only word that he could think to describe Bill is cool.
Yeah.
So... Yes. And he imagined Bill to be kind of like Percy because Bill was like a prefect. He was head boy.
Yeah,
He works for the Bank Gringotts, but he's also like a curse breaker, which is kind of like, edgy.
I imagine him having tattoos,
a bit of risk.
That's probably not a thing that wizards necessarily do.
Yeah.
Why does no one have a moving tattoo?
Yeah, I feel like that's a missed opportunity. I feel like Sirius...
Oh,
they give him tattoos in the film, but I don't remember if he is described as having them in the books.
I don't remember that either.
I feel like I would have, recalled that. But
and again, I feel like they would move because their paintings and pictures move, so why wouldn't your tattoos?
Exactly.
That was a missed opportunity. But, yeah, I imagine this day and age, he would also have had a tattoo to really solidify, the hot bad boy thing.
Yes, because, listen, he's a curse breaker. That sounds dangerous and exciting. He's got the long hair. He's wearing like a fang earring. He's the height of cool. And what says cool better than tats that move?
Right.
Nothing.
Right. I one up your pierced ear and I give you a tattoo.
HBO, if you're listening, when you cast for Bill, first of all, I thought that the guy who played him...
Domhnall Gleeson.
I feel like he is an attractive guy, but he gives me more, like, nerd hot and not, like, cool curse breaker hot.
Yeah. He kind of... For me, it's sort of like that nerd who comes into his style kind of hot. You know what I mean? Nerdy, but becomes sort of... bad boy. I don't know. It worked for me.
I think Domhnall Gleeson is super attractive, and I do think he fit Bill in the way that like the twins fit Fred and George.
Right.
They're not really the description on the page, but the way they played it.
Interestingly, their what Ron should be.
Yes.
And Ron is what they should be.
Yes.
So, like, shorter and not muscular, but just like a similar, just kind of normal,
a larger
shorter build.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Ron is supposed to be like tall and lanky, and they kind of swapped it in the
film,
in the casting.
Yeah.
So, but yes, Domhnall Gleeson looks a ton like the Weasley twins, so he like fits in perfectly. Yeah. I do agree though, they could go a little more rugged or whatever for Charlie and Bill. You know?
Yeah, that would be the descriptor. I would like maybe he has like a bit of scruff going. Yes. You know, I
will say I don't want spoilers if for some reason you're one of the few people on the planet that knows nothing about Harry Potter. But Domhnall Gleeson's character does get some attributes later that kind of, I think, enhance his attractiveness, which sounds weird, but...
yeah, I mean, a scar?
Right.
Come on, it shows you're in for the danger.
Right.
Back to Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. So, after we meet Bill and Charlie and... we see Percy again. He works at the ministry now. He's even more insufferable than ever.
Yes.
Cauldron thickness and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
We find out about the twins and their ambition to start a joke shop called the Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. And the Ton-Tongue Toffees are one of the products they've developed.
Right. So at first I was like, oh, is that I mean, you wouldn't think that reading it the first time, but I was like, I couldn't remember. I was like, that's not a Zonko. That's one of theirs. Yeah, that's one of their experimental.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, Ron and Ginny go on and talk about how they've been hearing, like, explosions in the twins' room for years, but never thought anything about it.
Right.
But they've actually been developing real things and, like, products that they could sell.
Yeah. I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves, but, like, once you see all the things they come up with, you realize, like, what accomplished wizards they are.
Yeah.
The things that they're able to curate and make. I mean, like, this is, like, transfiguration, potion. I mean, like, they have, like, they use every facet of their magical learning in these products. So, it's pretty phenomenal.
It's impressive. Yeah.
Very impressive.
And they turn out to be very apt businessmen as well. So, we get to, like, kind of learn that little tidbit, and Mrs. Weasley is pissed. Mr. Weasley wasn't going to tell her about the Ton-Tongue Toffee, and then we get the whole hubbub with the twins and Mrs. Weasley. And...
right. Because they're like, you knew Dudley was on a diet. You did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Which, you get that aspect of, like, them wanting to get back at Dudley because of how horrible he is to Harry. I was like, what good big brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so. And then we eventually...
But revenge is never good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
But anyway.
Hermione is there as well. She's going to go to the Quidditch World Cup with them. Everybody has dinner. They have to have dinner outside because there's so many. And it's just nice. And Harry's like, this is the shit.
Yep.
Basically.
I love this.
I love this.
Next chapter is the Portkey. So the next morning, they all wake up early, except for Bill, Percy, and Charlie, because they don't have to take any stinky old Portkey, because they can just apparate.
Yep.
So they're gonna just whoop whoop send themselves.
Yep.
But the rest of the crew is, tromping through the woods, I guess, to get to the meeting spot.
Yeah.
And that is where we meet the Diggories. We see Cedric again, and then he's with his dad, Amos. They're going to also use the Portkey to transport to the Quidditch World Cup fairground.
Yeah.
Property, whatever.
Yeah.
And, the Portkey takes them.
Yeah. And what I like about this interaction is, even though Amos kind of makes Harry uncomfortable because he, like, mentions, like, oh, Cedric beat Harry Potter at Quidditch.
And his dad is very competitive, but also very proud of his son.
Yeah. I think even though we're experiencing this mostly through Harry's perspective, but we're third party, but it is nice to see, like, that Amos Diggory is so proud of his son, and he loves him so much that he anything that Cedric does is like gold to him.
Right.
So even though Cedric's like, Dad, stop.
Right.
Like,
he's like, you're being rude.
You're being rude.
Quit.
I wouldn't have won if Harry wouldn't have fallen off his broom.
Right.
And I just really, like, it warmed my heart.
Yeah, but we also get to see Cedric's humbleness as well.
Cedric is so humble.
He's not like, yeah, Potter. Like, he doesn't pull a Draco. He's like, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Stop.
Which we saw even in Prisoner of Azkaban during that match. Like, Cedric was like, I want a rematch. Like,
yes.
Let's do over. This doesn't feel good to me. This isn't an outright win.
Right. He's a humble, honorable kid.
He is. Yeah. And I like that we get a lot more Hufflepuff. Yeah. In this book, which is really nice. And we get Cedric as like he's the chosen one of the Hufflepuffs and represents them well.
Right. Because they feel like they've been kind of shoved aside and haven't had any honor or glory in a long time. Because everyone just thinks of Hufflepuffs. Hufflepuffs, really? Wow, I just making my point right there.
Salt in the wound.
I can't believe I am a Hufflepuff. I can't believe I just said that. Okay, so Hufflepuff. I just totally lost my train of thought. Everyone thinks of them as that line from the first book, and Hufflepuff took all the rest. Yeah. But there are qualities that go with Hufflepuff. It's just not like, the rejects that the other houses didn't want. Right. They're loyal and they're honorable, fair and so but they are kind of like seen as just like the nice ones at the end of the race. So a lot of people were excited, for Hufflepuff to have a champion,
have Cedric.
Yes.
And he's handsome and smart and he's all the things.
He's kind of like the prince of the house.
He is, yeah. So he's the golden boy.
But he doesn't act like it, which is what makes him such a
he's not
Hufflepuff.
He's not pompous.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Cedric. And he's played by Robert Pattinson. So,
which in the book, I think it said that he has like dark hair and something else. So he was casted a little differently. Yeah. Was it? Well, didn't it say he had dark hair?
I think he does have dark hair.
I feel like Robert has kind of more like sandy brown hair. It's not like dark brown, but
it's not as dark.
But I wouldn't say that he was cast incorrectly.
Yeah,
obviously Robert was a good choice.
Yeah, he did it really well. But I feel like the descriptors for Cedric are very similar to the descriptions we get later on of Tom Riddle.
Yeah, I feel like anytime they describe someone with dark hair, whether it be Harry or Tom or Cedric, you're just sort of like, do all dark-haired boys look the same to you? Well, all handsome dark-haired boys?
Yeah, I think a lot of character descriptions outside of, like, the Weasleys are left kind of vague. Like, you get pretty spot-on descriptions of the Weasleys, Harry, and Malfoy. But outside of that, they're mostly described as, like, their hair color. Right. And that's really it. So you're kind of left to consider how they look for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's good. That. I think with the Weasleys, there's so much specific differentiation just so you can picture them. Because otherwise, if you're like, yep, and he had red hair, then they would all just look like little clones in your brain. So it's good to get those descriptors for that.
Yeah. All right. So now we're on to Bagman and Crouch. So we've taken the Portkey, we've arrived at campgrounds, and they check in with the guy who owns it, and he's a Muggle man.
Right. I forget his name. I'm like, I don't understand why they do this at all. Why
Mr.
they have to pay this Muggle to use the property. It's just, I mean, I guess because he owns the land, but just, I don't know, do a spell or give him, send him money in the mail and be like, hey, have the government like prepay and then I don't know. It's weird that every single wizard has to interact with this man and then he has to be obliviated every 5 minutes. It just doesn't seem like appropriate use of.
It seems inefficient.
Inefficient.
What they really could do is make him think send him off on a vacation with his family, use the property, send him the money, and then, like, put entries in his, like, logs or his books or whatever for the use. Yes. And so that the money's there, it's accounted for in his logs, and he's on vacation.
Because it's not like this was used as a vehicle to teach us about Obliviate, because we got that in the second book.
Right.
So I don't know why we did it this way, other than to be funny and interesting.
I think the reason why it was done this way is so that later, when the Death Eaters...
We have someone to pinpoint.
Yeah, so we have a reason for the Death Eaters to be running around, and we get told what the Death Eaters are. I think that's the reason.
Right. But they could have just grabbed any Muggle. It didn't have to be this man that 20 billion people interacted with, and then they had to obliviate him.
Yeah,
his poor addled brain.
And they could have had them doing something else. Yeah. It didn't need to be that, but it is more poignant that they're attacking people.
And it's someone that we met, even if briefly. Yes. But I feel like it's still not a good enough. That was just one little, like, funky thing that irked me. I was like, why? Yeah. This is so silly.
And it is a funny thing, right? Sure. Right. But
I'm like, statute of secrecy, but you're gonna fry this man's brain. Okay.
Yeah. It's silly.
You couldn't come up with a better solution. Yeah. My friend just did in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's all good. It's all good.
Here we are. So they booked a campsite and they have some tents. They're setting it up. Mr. Weasley is, like, in love with what's going on here. Because
you have, like, tents of different wizards from all over.
We're seeing all kinds of stuff. This is, like, the first time we're experiencing adult wizards and their families. We see children flying around on toy brooms that like hover right above the ground. We are seeing foreign wizards. We get the Salem witches, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like impressing upon you that the wizarding world is more than just what we've encountered thus far. And that's really cool. It's really funny to watch Mr. Weasley try to use matches.
Yes.
And they run into all kinds of people, classmates. I love the scene with the guy who's wearing the dress. Yeah. And he's like, I like a breeze around my privates.
Yeah. Is it his wife or something that's yelling at him like, you're not wearing that garment properly?
I think he's a ministry guy, and it's another ministry guy who's like, no, you have to wear pants.
Right. Because it's not like he was wearing a kilt or something. Like, he was wearing
like, a legit, like, dress.
Some random Muggle woman dress. Like,
yeah, and they're like, you're going to draw attention. Right. Muggle men wear these pants.
Right, yeah. It's like, we're trying to fit in this society that, like, so we're not pointed out. We're trying to blend in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Super funny.
Yeah.
So, this is a good chapter. It's fun, and
we get the tents that kind of have that whole, like, bigger on the inside kind of thing. I can't remember all of them, but I love each book and or movie kind of have, like, this Harry just being in awe and wonder of magic. Like, magic is so cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think the tent thing is one of those moments, and I just really like that.
Yeah, the tents are super cool, and when they're at the campsite and they have the fire lit finally, and they're trying to make breakfast, and Percy and Bill and Charlie show up, and then Bagman and Crouch stop by, and so that's when we actually meet them, and we find out that Mr. Weasley got the tickets from Bagman for, like, doing him a favor or something.
Yes.
And Mr. Crouch is Percy's boss. And he calls him Weatherby. And the twins think it's the most funny thing they've ever heard.
Just another, like, ammo in their arsenal, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
To make blows at Percy.
Exactly. And Mr. Crouch is, like, very straight-laced, very Percy. And Mr. Bagman's, like, fun, jovial, used to be a Quidditch player.
Right. It just occurred to me, though, if you can speak 200 languages, but you can't remember your assistant's name, that's a dick move.
That's dickish.
I know that Percy is pompous and self-important, and you feel like he needs to be knocked down a peg, but come on, dude.
Yeah, I know. So we get that cool little interaction, and we get them also, like, Arthur and Mr. Crouch and Bagman are all kind of like shop talking.
Yeah.
So we get to see a little bit of the like ministry inner workings.
Yes.
Kind of what went into planning the event, keeping it secret, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So that's pretty interesting as well.
Definitely.
So yeah, then it's time to go to the stadium to watch the match.
Woo-hoo.
They buy the omnioculars.
Yeah. Which is cool. Like, Harry doesn't even think about the money. He's just like, 3 pairs, please.
Yeah.
Because he wants him, Ron, and Hermione to have a pair.
Mm-hmm.
And Ron, of course, is resistant at first, because he doesn't want Harry, he doesn't want handouts and, all that stuff. But Harry's like, I just want to buy you a Christmas or birthday present for the next 10 years. Just take it, dang it.
Yeah.
But they're essentially like zooming cameras. You can reverse what you're watching. You can fast forward and,
You can do like slow motion, replays.
Zoom in,
It like has like text and it'll tell you like the move that they're doing.
It's a cool little piece of gadgetry, but I mean, they're pretty expensive. Were they like 12 galleons or something?
Yeah, like a piece.
Yeah, so.
That's a lot.
Which I have not done the math that
Me
like
either.
people like the Carlin brothers have done to like figure up like how much wizard money compares to muggle money or, but yeah, I just know that there's gold, sickles, and you could say nuts. Knuts,
I like knuts better.
Yeah, I like knuts better too. I've heard it say, I think the audiobook says newts or something, which I'm like, no.
I guess I haven't really paid attention, but I like knut.
Yeah, I like knut, even though, obviously, like, you wouldn't necessarily say that, but I feel like wizards would say the K.
Yeah. I just feel like it sounds cooler.
Yep. I like it. So,
yeah.
Gold, sickles, and knuts. We buy those, and then we move on to the next chapter, which is the Quidditch World Cup, which is exciting. So,
very exciting.
Again, we are reminded, Arthur got the tickets from Bagman, so they're like nice seats. They're like in the top box.
Yeah, this is the elite, the most exclusive.
Which, it's funny because in the movie they act like the top seats are like the bad seats, but obviously in the book and anyone with common sense knows that the top seats are the best seats because that's where you're gonna see.
It's where the action is. It's in the air.
So we get amazing seats, but of course because they are amazing seats, there's other people that have lots of money that can afford these seats. So who are we sat by, Maddie?
The Malfoys.
Great.
Oh, great.
Grand. Wonderful time.
It's
and they're another feather in their cap. They're there at the invitation of Fudge himself, the Minister of Magic. So
yes.
La-di-da. But we actually get to meet Draco's mother, Narcissa, this time. Mm-hmm. So that's wonderful. And they're all just rude as usual.
Yeah.
Are we surprised?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
And Fudge is there with the Bulgarian Prime Minister, so we get to, see them interact a little bit.
And it's funny because the Bulgarian minister doesn't speak English, and Fudge is trying to talk to him. And he's like,
Right. Yeah, quote unquote doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
And also we see Winky sitting up in the top box. That's when we meet her. She is saving a seat for Barty Crouch. Mm-hmm. But she's a little freaked out because she is terrified of heights.
She is.
And we are in the top box.
So yeah, she's pretty far up there. And Crouch never shows up.
Nope.
So.
Doesn't come. Sorry. Yawning. Doesn't come to watch the match.
Nope.
So she just stuck up there.
Yep.
Seemingly just terrified for no reason. It's like, come on.
Poor little Winky.
I know. And then we have Bagman commentating on the Quidditch match. Before the match starts, he actually gets the twins to make a bet.
Oh, yeah.
On the game.
Yeah.
And they say that, because the game is Ireland and Bulgaria. And they say, well, Ireland's going to win, but Bulgaria's going to catch the snitch. And he's like, you're on. That sounds
likely.
Dumb.
Yeah. And they bet, all of their savings.
Right. Which I forget how much their savings is. But
it's like 30. Yeah, it's like 39 galleons, so many nuts, and so many sickles.
I said gold earlier. I meant galleons.
Well, they call it gold sometimes.
Okay. I was like, oops. But yes, they're gold galleons. Silver sickles. And bronze knuts. So, Anywho, but yes. And it's cool we get to see the mascots show off. You know, we have the Vila for Bulgaria. They're like these beautiful women, you know, and they kind of entrance men.
Yeah, their magic is like once they like dance, it like puts men in a trance.
Or they like want to impress them or whatever.
Yeah.
They're kind of like sirens in a way.
Yeah,
you know?
That's kind of what I think of too.
Though they have the beautiful woman look, but they also kind of have like this bird beast look if you get on their bad side.
Yeah,
so.
And they like shoot fireballs out of their hands.
Something,
it's
yeah.
pretty wild.
You better watch out. Don't tick off a Vila, okay?
Yeah.
And then of course Ireland has leprechauns as their mascot, so we get each one kind of puts on their own little show or whatever. But the match is obviously super exciting, and everyone's super impressed. You know, we get to see Victor Crumb for the first time and in action doing his Wronski feint move, you know, where he dives to the ground and then pulls up at the last second, and if done properly, his opponent slams
into the ground.
Straight into the ground.
Yep.
But lo and behold, Ireland does win, but Crumb is the one that catches the snitch and ends the game. They say it's because Crumb knew, because there's a 10-point difference after he catches the snitch.
Yeah.
So it's essentially like Ireland is at 160 and Crumb catches it and Bulgaria loses with 150 or something like that. So at this point, Ireland has made 15 goals or 16 goals, or I think, 16 goals, because isn't it like 10 points per goal or something?
Yeah.
So the justification was Crumb knew that Bulgaria would never catch up, but all they had to do was get 2 goals.
Yeah, but I think their argument is that the Irish chasers were just so good.
And he wanted to win on his terms, so yeah. Kind of crazy. Not sure how the Twins guessed that would happen unless they're just super big fans and they know that Crumb has like that little bit. I don't feel like we see that kind of pride from Crumb at any other point in the book. But yeah, I mean, he just was like, I wanted in on my, he didn't say that. They guessed that
they said that for him.
Wanted to end it on his terms.
Yeah, which get it.
Yeah, okay,
sure, whatever
works for you. If I was on your team, I'd be like, you didn't have faith that we could get 2 goals.
He's like, no.
He's like, no. With that guy, those guys?
Respectfully, no.
Right. But yeah, so. And
that's
so the Twins win the bet. So
they
do. Pay up.
They get that Skriller.
Yep.
All right. So now we're moving on to our next chapter, which is the Dark Mark.
Right. Oh, before I forget, when the leprechauns were doing their thing, they dropped a ton of gold all over the place.
Right. They did.
Yeah. So Ron is like, here, I'm paying you back for the omninoculars. Like,
now you have to buy me a Christmas
gift. We are square now.
Yep. So, yes. Now we're back in the tent. Everyone's having a jolly time. They're reliving the match. They're swapping stories, having hot cocoa. It's a grand old time. Finally, everyone goes to bed, and it's all peaches. And then suddenly, Harry is being shaken awake by Arthur. He's like urgently trying to get everyone up and out of the tent and away from the campsite because a group of masked wizards are running around. They have the Roberts family, the Muggle family who owns the campground, suspended in midair. They're trampling tents. Things are on fire. It's chaos.
It's a horrifying scene.
Horrifying scene.
If you really think about it, like, yeah, it's like they have these poor people, like, strung up, floating in the air. Like, they have to be absolutely out of their mind terrified.
Yeah. Can you imagine? You're just minding your own, and then all of a sudden these people with wands just lift you, like, hundreds of feet in the air.
Bouncing you around. Spinning you. I mean, I can't imagine they were just letting them float there gently. You know? They're
and I think
terrifying them.
Does describe that they, like, tumble Mrs. Roberts upside down.
Yes.
And so her, like, it shows, like, her underwear and stuff.
Which is
disgusting.
Yes. The whole thing, I was like, I don't know why this didn't hit me. And I think obviously the movie doesn't show really that. They just show them, like...
marching around, yeah.
Right, but, I mean, yeah, we all have nightmares of, like, you know, being at school naked. Like, being strung upside down by magic with your bits just hanging out, right. And you don't know what's going on. You're being terrorized.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. That's... yeah.
And it's for the just kicks and grins.
Yeah, that's really the kicker there is, like, their goal is humiliation and terrorizing these people for no reason. Mm-hmm. So...
but they're also just kind of trashing around the campsite too, aren't they?
Yeah, they're trampling tents and people are trampling other people to get away.
Right.
So it's like mass chaos.
Right. Because yes, of course they can disapparate, but some people can't, or it's like they don't want to leave their, their stuff. So they're trying to gather what they can and run.
Yeah, and there are kids here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really a horrific scene. So Arthur, Percy, Bill, and Charlie, they're adults, so they're like, well, we have to go help mitigate this situation.
Yes.
And so they send off Fred, George, and Ginny, and then Harry, Ron, and Hermione into the woods away.
Yeah.
They get split up, and Harry and Ron and Hermione are, like, running through the woods trying to get away. They see Winky trying to get away, but she's, like, struggling.
Yeah, because They suspect because she didn't have permission to leave the top box.
Yeah.
So she's, like, fighting her instructions.
Yes.
Which is
really gross.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the first time we see Hermione, like, really questioning the house elf whole system.
Right, because they never saw Dobby. They just heard about Dobby. They never met Dobby.
Right.
He only interacted with Harry. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that... yeah, not only had Hermione not, like, seen a house elf in person, I don't think she fully realized, like, how they're treated.
Yeah.
Because you can just chalk up, like, oh, well,
that's
it's
the Malfoys.
Of course they treated her like that. But...
yeah. Yeah. So that's the first time we see Hermione really, like, thinking about house elf treatment in general. Bagman is in the woods, and they run into him, and he seems very harried, but they... tell him about what's going on, and he seems surprised, like he didn't know, which is weird and kind of suspicious.
Yeah.
They see Malfoy, and Malfoy's all smug, and he's like, watch out, Granger, you'll be next.
Right.
Oof. Gross.
I almost said, why are you so gross? But it's because of your parents / your dad, so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they find, like, it's at this point also that Harry realizes he doesn't have his wand. It's missing. And he feels, like, defenseless.
Yeah. Which
you would.
Yeah.
This is, like, the one, like, thing you need to use your magic, essentially.
Right. It's not, like, just a weapon. It's, like, a tool that does all of it.
All of it. Like, your only defense.
Right.
He's now basically naked and without shoes.
Right. Yeah.
I never feel like a character is more vulnerable than when they're barefoot for some reason. Mm-hmm. Like in horror films, whenever someone, like, running around and they don't have any shoes on, I'm just like, oh.
You're just waiting for the thing to spear through their foot.
Exactly. I'm like,
and impede their progress.
Just shoes.
Yeah.
Just shoes. Why are you barefoot?
Just literally take the 2 seconds.
Yeah. Just some slips, even.
Right. Come on. Come on, murderer. Don't you want the chase to be fair? Just let them put on some shoes.
It bothers me every time.
Mm-hmm.
I also really don't like being barefoot myself. Like, even walking around in my house, I usually have socks on.
Oh, see, when I was a kid, I loved being barefoot. Preferred not to wear shoes or socks at all.
That's my brother.
Now I like socks, like, but at the same time, like, I don't like to sleep in socks. I think I'm like, I feel hot or something.
I can't sleep in socks either.
But yeah, I am normally barefoot or in socks. I'm not one of those people that, like, will walk around their house in shoes.
I wear house shoes.
Yeah, like a house shoe slipper. I'll wear those sometimes if my little feetsies are cold, but
yeah,
my feet tend to get hot. I can be cold often, but little extremities, like, sometimes I guess I just don't like to be held in.
Yeah. Restricted.
Right.
Yep.
I'm much more for the cozy sock now, but when I was a kid, I just would go everywhere barefoot.
Yeah.
There were times I hopped in the car to go to the store, and my mom was like, "Where are your shoes?" And I'm like, "Oops."
Yikes.
I can't even believe that I did that, because that's also, like, horrifying and embarrassing to me now. But
it's a kid thing.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, Harry's wandless, but they find, like, a little area to kind of chill.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when they hear some, like, rustling in the bushes, and then they hear a voice yell something, and this is when...
Maud's Maudra! Or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's actually it. And then they see in the sky, it's like a shape of a skull with the snake coming out of its mouth, and they're like, what in the world is this? Mm-hmm. And before they have too much time to really contemplate it, a bunch of wizards just appear in the clearing.
They're being shot at.
And they're, like, shooting stunning spells at them, and the three of them are, like, ducking to the ground, and it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Arthur is in the group, and he realizes, hey, wait, that's my son and Harry and Hermione.
Right.
Like, hold up now.
Yeah. Those children belong in my care.
Yeah. So then suspicion shifts to, they're like, oh, which one of you did it? And they're like, what do you mean? Did what?
Right. We're just kids.
And then Amos Diggory is there. I don't know if he explains or if it's Crouch that explains.
I think it's Hermione, which I thought was odd, but she read it in a book. But yeah, she's like, it's the dark mark. It's his mark. Yeah,
and so we find out that this mark is the dark mark, and Voldemort would cast it over people's houses after he killed. And so this is also when I don't know if this is when we find out what Death Eaters are, or if Mr. Weasley explains that, like, later when they're back in the tent, but...
Yeah, hard to... I don't remember that specifically, but...
Yeah, so at first they're accusing Harry, Ron, and Hermione of doing it, and then they're like, okay, well, obviously they're kids. There's no way they would know that spell.
Right, and I think Harry even says, like, I don't even have a wand.
Yeah, he's like, I lost my wand.
Yeah.
And so then they point to where they heard the rustling. They go and look, and they find Winky and a wand. And Harry's like, oh, that's my wand.
Yeah, that'd be mine, but I didn't do it.
I didn't do it, but that's mine.
Yeah.
And Winky, Mr. Crouch's house elf, they're like, well, obviously a house elf also isn't going to be able to do this.
Well, at first they were like, you're not supposed to use a wand. There's rules against that. And they try and blame her, but I think they say, no, the voice that we heard was much lower, so it couldn't have been her.
Absolutely a man.
Yeah.
So then everyone's kind of like, all right, well, what the hell? But Mr. Crouch fires Winky. He's like, this means clothes.
Yeah.
So he sets her free, and she's distraught.
Devastated. This is not an elf that is happy to be free or dismissed.
Does not want to be free.
No.
So that's where that one ends.
Yep. And then we move into Mayhem at the Ministry.
Whoop, whoop.
So that's when we get back to the burrow, and Mrs. Weasley is obviously incredibly relieved that no one is hurt. And Arthur has to leave to go back to the Ministry, though, to deal with all the fallout from the World Cup, because can't be working for the Ministry and just, whew, well, that's over. I'm going to hang out at home.
Yeah.
No, he's got to go. Even, can you imagine? They've got to obliviate first of all, they better heal those humans, those muggles, and then they have to obliviate them and, clean everything up, try and figure out who it was. The fact that they don't know who they were, I call baloney sauce.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But, you have people in denial left and right, even if you straight up say, hey, no, I know one of them was this person.
Yeah.
No, they're an upstanding citizen. Oh, well, okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, Arthur has to go deal with all that, and he ends up working, long hours for several days, and so isn't home much. And the rest of the family and the kids and stuff, they just prep to go back to school. Miss Weasley does a lot of the shopping, and she gets their robes, and for some reason, we didn't mention this earlier, but like Charlie kind of hints at something that's going on at school this year, and I think even like when Arthur and Bagman and stuff were talking shop, they're kind of alluding to something that's going on at school this year. And Mrs. Weasley not only like got everyone's school stuff or whatever, but she also bought dress robes. And unfortunately, Ron's are old and lacy.
Yeah, so she got Harry's. His are like deep green to match his eyes.
Right.
But
she bought that with Harry's money.
Yeah, that's Harry's money, obviously.
Yeah.
But Ron, obviously, his had to be used. Yeah. And they're old and musty.
Right.
And have lace on them.
Right. Which I just feel so bad because that the twins, they didn't get lacy, musty, and maybe they would have bought it with their own money or something, but I doubt it because they don't have any money because we don't know yet, but Bagman is
but it also we don't know. I just kind of assume that maybe the twins already had dress robes.
Yeah, and I kind of thought that too, but I was like, when would they have used them? And also, those boys probably grow like weeds. They would have needed new dress robes. Yeah, but I just feel like it's another one of those like Ron kind of getting the short end of the stick. Or at least that's what it's supposed to feel like. Yeah,
and I also think that if the twins had Ron's dress robes, they would just wear them. Yeah, they're those type of people that.
They wouldn't have been bothered. They wouldn't have been bothered. Absolutely right. They would have been like, "Yes, this is
they would
the height of fashion."
Wear this like ruffled cravat and lace cuffs. Like, look at me. Yep. You know. Yep. Kind of like I picture them in their dress robes, like Harry and Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber. Yes. They look ridiculous, but they're owning it, so no one cares.
Absolutely agree.
But Ron is so self-conscious.
Understandably so.
Yeah,
I do think that there's something to be said of confidence really changing the whole thing. So it's like if he had walked in those robes just like confident, whatever. Yeah. Because I could see the twins doing it and no one saying a thing. Exactly. But because it's Ron. Yeah. Poor guy.
Poor Ron.
Aw. Smells like my great Aunt Tessie. I think that's a Strictly movie, but
I think so.
It makes me laugh.
It is funny. So now we're due back on the train. In the morning of the departure, we see Amos Diggory again. His head is in the fire. Is this the first time we see that? Like, head in the fire communication?
I think so.
So he's telling Arthur that Mad-Eye Moody needs some help. He's something about his dustbins and the policeman, and so Arthur's going off to help him.
Yeah, there's a kerfuffle.
Yep. So
Muggle eyes on it, and Muggle things acting as they should not, and that is Arthur's department.
Yep, that is his expertise. So he heads off to help Mad-Eye, and Molly is left to wrangle all the kids into the taxis. And
because they couldn't get cars or anything this year.
Yeah. So they get into Muggle taxis. They get to the train. They're still trying to ask them what's going on at Hogwarts, and they're not telling. I think Bill goes with Molly to help them onto the train.
I think so. Yeah, one of the brothers.
One of them,
Bill, because Charlie probably already left to get things prepared.
Yeah, I think so. So they're on the train, and they hear Malfoy talking about how his dad wanted to send him to Durmstrang instead of Hogwarts because Durmstrang actually teaches dark arts instead of just defense. Right. And so...
That's great.
Cool, but he said his mom couldn't stand sending him so far away. Right. And so we get the trio talking a little bit more about, like, the other wizarding schools and... especially after the World Cup, they saw the different wizards from different countries. Yeah. So, little more talking about the wider world. We get drop-ins, Neville, we get Seamus and Dean popping in, and then we get Malfoy coming back, making fun, finding Ron's dress robes and making fun of him, and, the usual Hogwarts Express banter.
Right.
This happens every year.
Yeah. Shut your greasy mouth, Malfoy.
That's right. So, yeah. It's your usual ride to the school.
Yep. And, next is the Triwizard Tournament.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
But yeah, train ride goes as usual. We get to school, get in the castle. They do the sorting and the feast.
Yeah. Peeves,
for some reason, is in a bad mood and, being cantankerous as usual, so he's throwing water balloons everywhere. I forget why he's mad. Because he was told he couldn't
go to the feast.
That's right.
Yeah.
Probably because he messes with people.
Yeah, no one would be able to eat in peace.
And he's literally doing the thing that they were like, no, that's why you can't come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, you're lucky you're even at this castle. I'm sure Dumbledore could banish you in a hot second.
Yeah.
Just be thankful that he lets you build these children's character, because that's the only reason I can think that you're allowed to stay.
Yeah.
They let a lot of, quote-unquote, character building happen in this building, though.
Yeah.
With professor and ghost alike.
Yeah.
Why are we employing people that treat these children like they're victims? Like, they victimize them.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. Bully them.
Actual cruelty and abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dumbledore, you're a good man, but I don't,
Yeah.
I'm starting to question what's going on, man.
I know.
But, so we're at the feast, and we actually finally get another sorting song, which is actually different than the one that we heard first year. And apparently he does this every year. Just, second year we drove a car into a tree, so we missed it. And then the third year they got pulled aside.
Yeah, and McGonagall's talking about telling Harry about Sirius Black after him.
So we missed it then too. So we got to hear a new song, and it was cool. We got some information on more info on the founders and the different houses and whatnot. So we get to meet Dennis Creevey, which is Colin Creevey's brother, Harry's little fanboy. Now there's two of them.
Which I think it's really interesting because Colin Creevey is Muggle-born. Mm-hmm. And his sibling is also a wizard. Mm-hmm. It feels like, I guess I'm thinking of like Lily and Petunia, and how Lily is magical and Petunia isn't. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why. I just think it's rare that two siblings from a Muggle-born family would both be wizards. But
maybe Petunia is she just didn't have magical whimsy, and so magic never developed in her.
Maybe. Potentially.
Maybe there's some wizards in the family line for the Creeveys, or maybe just those two boys were just born with imagination and magic, and
I really I like them. I like the Creeveys. They're precious little beebs.
They're cute. So so this is his brother's first year here.
Yeah,
so.
And he fell in the lake.
Of course he did.
I love that scene. What is funny is that I read somewhere originally Hermione was supposed to have a sibling.
Oh, really?
Like a little sister, I think, who was also, like, eventually come to Hogwarts, too.
Interesting. Maybe they just thought she would interfere with the trio's plans, trying to tag along.
Yeah.
Whereas we have the Creevey brothers who try and tag along, but they're not related, so you can kind of dismiss them a little easier.
Yeah, and you also have, like, the Weasleys, but there are enough of them that they're not, like, hyper involved in each other's lives until, like, later, obviously. Right.
But they're part of the friend group, but they're not also clamoring to be around each other constantly.
Right, yeah.
They probably are like, I see you enough in summer, like...
Yeah.
We're at school, you do you and I'll do me, okay? Bye.
Exactly. Exactly.
But, where were we? Nearly Headless Nick floats around and talks about, Peeves disrupting the house elves, prep for the feast. Don't be messing with the food, man. That's what we're all here for. I mean, really.
Yeah.
And, I can't remember at what point Hermione learns... I think it's during dinner. Hermione learns that, in that conversation, she learns that Hogwarts has house elves. And she is appalled. Mm-hmm. And so she refuses to eat anything for the rest of the night. Well, she acts like she's going to do this forever. She's not eating Hogwarts food anymore because it's prepared by house elves.
Yeah, she's like, slave labor.
Right. Which
is fair.
Fair
assessment.
But knowing Dumbledore, excluding the thing I just pointed out.
Yeah.
He's a nice man who's generally fair, so I would assume that he, at some point, offered to pay the house elves, and they were like, absolutely not, just because that's how they be.
That's how they roll.
But, I don't know. I don't think we really touch on that until the next book, right?
We get Dobby.
Well, but I mean, like, how the other house elves, like, there's...
They don't want freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next book.
Yeah, I was going to say, we touch on that more later,
yeah,
right?
with, like, the knitting and the... Yeah,
okay, just making sure I didn't miss something in this one. I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. So, I mean, we get little glimmers of it. We'll see a little bit more of them. But, yeah, as of right now, she's appalled and thinks that Hogwarts is engaging in slave labor. And doesn't want to be any part of it, so she is not going to eat.
She is not.
And then we get to learn that we have a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher this year, as we should, because every year we lose one.
Yep.
And it is actually Mad-Eye Moody,
the
one that had the issue with the dustbins.
That's right.
Here he be, the Auror/Dark Wizard Catcher.
That's right.
And after the food and everything is done, then Dumbledore is announcing the revival of the Triwizard Tournament. That's what all this hubbub has been about.
That's right.
Is that they are going to host the Triwizard Tournament here at Hogwarts. It is a competition between Hogwarts, Beauxbatons or Beauxbatons, and Durmstrang. I think in the movie they say Beauxbaton, but it seems more appropriate that be Beauxbaton because it's French.
It's French, yeah. So, Beauxbatons just sounds
so Americanized.
It's so American. But I think it sounds, with a British accent, it doesn't clang on the ear so much. But when I just said, that clangs hard on my ear.
It does.
I feel like when I say it, I have to say Beauxbaton.
Yeah, Beauxbaton. Yeah, me too. I'm like, it feels wrong otherwise.
Yeah, it does.
Historically, it is just a competition between 3 different schools. It's supposed to, have camaraderie and, cooperation between different schools and different cultures and all that stuff. But they haven't held it in a really long time. This is the first in a long, long time.
Yeah, because of the death toll.
Right. They used to have it every 5 years, but now it's been probably, about a century or something?
Yeah.
Usually anything that happens in these books, it's been a century.
Yeah.
Harry's the first youngest seeker in a century. and so on and so forth. So, yes, we're going to have a competition this year between these 3 different schools.
Yeah. And
that's all we really get to know about it.
Yeah.
So it's still
kind of vague. But
it's an answer, but it's still a mystery as to, okay, it's a competition. What do we do in the competition?
Right. It seems like most people kind of are familiar with the concept of the Triwizard Tournament.
Yeah.
Harry's kind of like, all right.
And?
Sick.
And we don't really learn about, we just know that there's, an impartial judge that chooses the champions. But do they talk about that more later?
Yeah, they don't know what the impartial judge is.
Right. But has Dumbledore given the age rule yet at this point?
I think so.
Okay, then Dumbledore announces it. He also says, because of the dangerous nature of this tournament, there is an age restriction, and anyone who is younger than 17 will not be able to, not be able to participate.
Right. You can't put your name in unless you're 17. So,
right. Or maybe but maybe they don't mention that until we hear about the quote unquote impartial judge.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I feel like, well, I mean, it's not that
important, but
it's not that important. But it at some point, right, that's how it is.
But it is funny that they tell them there's going to be an impartial judge that will choose a champion from each school. Mm-hmm. But I think it's funny that they keep who/what the impartial judge is a secret. I think it's interesting.
It's interesting because it almost begs the question, why does it need to be a secret?
Right. Unless they're worried that someone's going to be able to figure out, like, something to trick it, but they put enchantments on it to not be tricked by the age thing, so
I don't know.
Why keep it secret? Who knows? But,
right.
But yeah, so that announcement is where...
That's where basically part 1 ends off.
Yep.
This isn't... The book's not divided into parts, but this is our part 1.
Right. This is the We Read Books part 1.
Yeah. So we leave off finding out about the Triwizard tourney.
But that be it.
That be it.
Until the next episode, of course.
Yeah.
Part 2 of this grand book.
Yeah. Typically, we, in the past, have released, when we do multi-parts, we usually release them at the same time.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that this time.
Nope. We're going to leave you hanging.
We're going to make you wait.
Just like they made the students wait.
That's right.
Most of you probably have read these books anyway, so...
Yeah.
But if not...
All you're waiting on is our commentary.
Right, exactly.
But, yeah, so we're going to leave part 1 here, and you're going to wait for part 2.
Yeah.
So, I guess, reflecting back, we kind of do our in-process reflection as we're going through, but I think the beginning of this book has a lot going on in comparison, because I think at this point in the series, JK is kind of more confident in her reader. Like, because we get recaps, like, at the beginning of book 2 and a little bit at the beginning of book 3, but in book 4, she's just fully trusting you as the reader to know who Harry is, what Hogwarts is,
right?
That there's magic. Like, she is fully trusting you to have carried forward what we've learned in the first 3 books, so she doesn't spend any time recapping. I
think there's just minimal recaps, but it's not on the world, the basics of the world. It's like a specific thing that happened.
I think they're in the first or the second chapter when Harry wakes up, there's a small recap about finding Sirius.
Right. There's like, just a few like crucial moment things that it's like, I need to make sure you remember this.
Yeah.
But it's done in such a seamless way, whereas like you can kind of grab the other ones from the previous books pretty easily. You're like, oh, here's our little recap.
Yeah.
And this, I think it's written in a little bit more seamlessly, because I remember only catching a couple, and I was just like, oh, okay, here's tiny little recap.
Yeah.
But again, it was like on things that was like, oh yeah, you can't forget that. Like, you need to know that.
Yeah, and the serious one is the one that comes to my mind. Yes. And the way she writes that in is like, Harry's just had this dream, and he knows he needs to tell someone about the dream and his scar, but he can't think of the most effective person to tell. And then the last person he thinks of is Sirius, and then he feels guilty that he didn't think of him sooner, but then he reminds himself, I just found him a few months ago.
Yes.
So
I even remember like when they mention because they kind of recap the sadness of like, he thought he was going to be able to be away from the Dursleys.
Yeah.
You know, for one brief moment. I was just like, ugh.
So sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so very minimal recaps, if at all, and when they are, they're very woven in.
Yeah.
And really well done.
Which it not only shows that JK is trusting her reader to pick up those things and carry them forward, but also that she's understanding that her readers are not 7 and 8 years old anymore.
Right.
Her readers are older now. We're more advanced. We're moving out of kind of children's lit and into more middle grade to YA kind of. I would say that books 1 and 2 are children's books. Book 3 is a middle grade book.
Yep.
And from book 4 on, we're in YA territory solidly, I think.
Yeah. And I really like that the books mature with the reader.
I agree.
I think it makes absolute sense, and I think it helps us as readers just relate that much more. Because especially you and I were the prime age.
Totally.
We were growing up at the same age Harry was in these books as we were reading them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It's very, honestly, it's unique to our age group. Mm-hmm. And I can't place any other series that is formatted in this way, where your characters are growing up, your readers are growing up, and the books are aging appropriately with the characters.
Yeah.
Like, most series are kind of static in
they keep their
genre.
Tone. Yeah.
But Harry Potter evolves from books 1 to 7.
Yes.
Like, if you just hold up book 1 and book 7, they are not the same.
No.
They're very different in structure, complexity, and tone. Mm-hmm. And it's very unique to this series, as much as people want to now go back and find criticisms, loopholes because of the hubbubs.
Right.
Now people want to criticize Harry Potter as not being good literature, but I think that they're just they want to be critical of the author, so they're criticizing the work.
Right.
Which, whatever, do you, but
right.
I think the appreciation for the way that the series is created it stands.
Absolutely. And I mean, even I made that small criticism earlier of like, that was an ineffective way or inefficient way to do the Quidditch stuff.
Yeah.
But as you pointed out, it's like, there's a purpose. Sometimes silly or foolish things have to happen in a book, or even convenient things have to happen in a book so that other things can occur.
Yeah.
It's just some things happen, and maybe that wasn't the best idea, but that's the idea that the author had. Mm-hmm. And it makes enough sense. Not everything is perfect.
Right.
And yeah, it's like, even with that small criticism, we've said a million times, we can criticize and pick things apart, but we absolutely love this book series.
Yeah.
So.
And I think every single book on Earth has plot devices that exist for the sole purpose to further the plot. There is not a book on this planet that doesn't have plot devices that are simply there to further the plot. The key is how they're integrated, and they should exist without being identifiable, or at least harder to identify.
Right.
It's much more prevalent in children's books because they're children's books.
Right. And we're thinking in the book is speaking to a child. So it's like, it's trying to follow your path of thought process, something that you're going to understand and it's going to make sense to you as a kid.
And also some things, like, of course the Roberts are there to facilitate the Death Eaters later on in that part of the book, but also there's not a ton of opportunity to see wizard and muggle interact, and this is one of those few times.
We see the worlds collide a little bit.
Yeah, we see muggles having to interact with wizards and being confused why they're confused about money. Yeah. We see wizards having to deal with trying to mitigate the muggles finding out about wizards, and so there's also that interaction that we don't get a lot. So
So even though I say, oh, it would have been smarter if they did this, it's more interesting if they did what was done in the book. Yeah. So I am not a writer. So I'm not saying that
it's so hard. It's so hard to write your story. You're going to have downtime in any story, especially one of this length, especially the way it's written. We have to cover an entire year of Hogwarts. That's what every book does. So we're going to have to fill those things with things that are seemingly innocuous, but they still have to be interesting.
Right. And I think that was fully interesting. And like I said,
I agree. It's a funny little scene.
Exactly.
And of course, seeing the ministry workers running around all harried and all kinds of those huge sporting events. Think of like the Super Bowl. Yep. There are people behind the scenes running around just like that.
Right. Yep. And if in every story, if everyone did the smartest and most best and efficient thing, you wouldn't have any stories to watch.
You wouldn't have. That's right.
And we would have nothing to relate to, because even though in hindsight you can go, oh, well, you should do this. In the moment, you don't always make the right choice. You always, or you make a weird plan or whatever. So
yeah, you don't live no one lives their life in the absolute most efficient way possible.
Right. But okay, persuasion. Well, if they would have just talked to each other,
sure.
Wouldn't that have made more sense? Yeah. Would it have been as interesting? No. Would we have had a story? No.
Right.
So
exactly.
You there are things in stories that are just straight up flaws. And make a story not work at all. And then there's other things that are like, oh, that's not as efficient, but it was much more interesting. Mm-hmm. Oh, it gets me from here to here. Right. Okay. You know? And you only realize that looking back. Right. In the moment, you're just experiencing it and you're enjoying it. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and like the whole how Harry has to go back to the Dursleys every year. Yes, is it weird that Dumbledore doesn't remove Harry from the Dursleys when he realizes that they treat him so poorly? Obviously.
There's actually a reason for it, though.
Yeah, there is a reason.
But still,
like...
How can they allow this abuse to continue?
Of course, the argument is, well, Dumbledore is the greatest wizard ever. We're told that. Why... Of course, he could have figured out a way to prevent Harry from having to go through that his whole childhood while also maintaining the protection. Sure, but the story unfolds the way it does because of Harry being with the Dursleys.
And he's kind of reminded of his humbleness. He never... Yeah. I mean, I don't know that he would have gotten pompous and I'm popular, you know, if he didn't go back to the Dursleys. But they are certainly a humbling reminder of what being treated like crap feels like.
Right. Yeah. So,
and what the wrong way to treat people is. So at very least, they're teaching him and us a reminder lesson.
Yeah. I mean, and we would be reading a completely different story.
Right.
If Harry had been able to be raised in the wizarding world. This would be a completely different story.
Right.
So, sure, it seems weird that Dumbledore wouldn't step in, but listen, this is a story.
Right. And again, these things that we think of now, I didn't think of them while reading them then.
No.
It was just like, it was part of the story. It was, he has to go back. Okay. You just accept it. Because again, you're reading it in the mind of, it's not, when you're a child, like, you're not overcomplicating it. Mm-hmm. You're just...
That's right. And also, if you think about Dumbledore's position in respect to Harry, Dumbledore is the headmaster of a school. Harry is with his family, his blood relations. In real life, teachers and administrators do have students that come into their classrooms that they see and know are being treated poorly, being abused by their family, and there is literally nothing they can do.
Right.
That happens super regularly.
So true.
And even more grievous consequences stem from that.
Yeah.
Like, children literally are killed by their parents.
Right. I was going to say, we say that the Dursleys are the worst, but there's actually much worse abuse.
There are teachers standing here who are like, I see this kid every day. I see that they're not being fed. I see that they have injuries on them. I see that they're dirty. They don't have the correct clothes. And all they can do is make reports. Right. And those reports go to a department that is understaffed, underfunded, and overworked. Right. And they can't get to every case. And then that child falls through the cracks. Right. This happens literally every single day.
Right. And then in this book, even think it's like, that's the magical government versus the Muggle government. So that's yet another barrier.
Yeah. I mean,
that would have to be crossed and an added complication.
So we don't look into the intricacies of that kind of dynamic.
Right.
Does Dumbledore have the authority to go in and take Harry out? We don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Technically, no.
I mean, who is Dumbledore to Harry? Right. No one, really. Right. His headmaster, that's it.
Right. He's made himself important to him.
Yeah. Can he just take Harry?
No.
I mean, you know.
Right.
He's not a government official.
Right.
He's not the government that governs the Muggles.
Get him out of there, but it's not that simple.
It might not be that simple.
Yeah.
So, that's a real life scenario that happens every single day.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, absolutely.
Many might think it's a plot hole or a clunky plot device, but it happens in real life every day. So,
absolutely.
Maybe not as much as people want to say.
Right. Yep. And like I said, and even in this book, then we get a little bit of an explanation for it.
Yeah, we do eventually.
Which helps.
Yeah.
But still, yeah. But no, you're 100% right. And I think that when reading fantasy, we forget that. You know, we just think, oh, well, it's fantasy. They can just swoop in and save him.
Yeah.
But I also do think, too, it's a little bit of, like, he's not I mean, he's abused, but he's not, like, being beaten. He's not, you know, he's being neglected.
Right.
Which is awful. But
right.
Again, like you said, there are worse things that happen and then people can't intervene. So
yeah, it's tough.
It's, you know, how much do you want to ruin the thing that you love by overthinking it?
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So.
Very good point, though.
Yeah. But do we have any other thoughts on the first part?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I like it. It's exciting. A lot of stuff going on. It's upset, you know, like.
Yeah.
It I don't know. It struck me as more upsetting than the first go around. But there are things that in this book we'll get to later that like touched me more than I think my first read too. So yeah.
Overall, very
good start.
Very strong start to this book for sure.
Lots going on.
Lots going on.
So I enjoy it, and like, you know, seeing the different cultures and just opening the world. Very cool.
Yeah, super cool. So
yeah.
All right. Well, come back next week for part 2, everyone.
Right. Yeah. We'll see you.
We'll see you then.
Next time.
Yeesh. I guess in the meantime, just, you know, continue with your reading books.
Right.
We don't have like an official send off, so
yeah, we could do, you know, the whole shebang each episode, but I think we're gonna kind of keep it succinct and to the point until we get to part 3.
That's right.
And then we'll end it with our official quote for you, or word of wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So, see ya.
Bye.